Welcome to Flip Lesson 15 for the 5th grade, and today we are looking at the multiplication table and really getting a better understanding of multiplication. And so as you look at your screen, you can see two terms that come up when it comes to multiplication. The first one being products, which is what a multiplication problem equals, so something times something is going to give you something else, and this right here is what we would call the product, compared to the factors, which would be what is actually being multiplied. And so in this case, these letters represent our factors. So we have that initial start to understanding multiplication. Other things we can talk about in terms of multiplication is we can talk about the commutative property of multiplication. Very, very similar to the commutative property of addition, which we've looked at in the past. Commutative property tells us that if we have a problem, we can write it either way and we're still going to get the same response. So it doesn't matter which order our factors are in, it's still going to get us the same product. For example, 2 times 3 equals 6, just like 3 times 2 equals 6. And so this is the commutative property of multiplication. Another property that we can explore when it comes to multiplication is the identity property of multiplication. Now, the identity property of addition said that 5 plus 0 equals 5. And so anytime you add a number to 0, it's always going to be that number. Multiplication is going to work a little bit different because we're not going to use the number 0. Instead, we're going to use the number 1. And so 1 times 5 equals 5, just like 5 times 1 equals 5. And so in the end, as we look at this, the statement that we can make is that any number multiplied by 1 is always that number. And we'll be able to look at this more as we continue on with our lesson. And the greater part of our lesson is to look at the multiplication table. And the table in front of you is one you may copy down in your notes. It's a great reference. If not, in your student planner, there's also a multiplication table that you can use at any time. But looking at the multiplication table, what we can see is that we want to understand how it works. And so we can start with our first problem, 4 times 8. You might be able to come up with that answer real quick, and that's excellent. But how does the multiplication table work? If I start at 4, and I'm going to start moving this way, and I'm going to hold up for a second, and then I go to the 8 and start moving down this way, where these two intersect, which happens to be right at 32, that is our answer. So 4 times 8 is 32. If I try another sample, I can do 6 times 7. So I can start at the 6 here. I'm going to change the color. So it's green. 6 times, so I go to the 6, start heading this way, I can go to the 7, go down this way, and where these two meet, there is our answer. So we're learning to understand how it works. One of the cool things about this property is it works both ways too, right? I could go up here and go 6 times 7, like that, and I still got 42 for an answer. Just like I can go back to the original problem with 4, and now I'm going to go to where it would intersect with 8, and once again I get 32 for an answer. And so I have 32 for an answer, I have 32 for an answer, no matter which order I go in. Just like here, I got 42 for an answer and 42 for an answer, no matter which way I went. Right? That's what we're looking at this lesson when it comes to multiplication. Understanding the table and how that works, and then of course all these unique properties, these terms, product, factors, commutative property, identity property, which you can see right there. All these terms that are important for multiplication. I'll leave this in front of you and see if you can figure out the 5 times 12 and how that would look on your multiplication table. That's it for lesson 15.